Hello, and thank you for joining LASA OMS for our webinar, Ask Me Anything About CBD, featuring Chad Connor. My name is Jeff Bloom, Education Marketing Coordinator here at LASA OMS. LASA OMS strives to support our customers, practitioners, educators, and other industry professionals through quality products, product education, and school and humanitarian relief donations. With our free webinar series, we intend to offer product and practice management education through its practical application by some of our industry's renowned educators. Keep in mind, if you're not able to join us for future programs, we record each webinar and make the recording available on our blog in the following week or two after the webinar. Let me take a moment to acclimate you to the webinar room. To the right of the video screen, you will see 3 tabs: Chat, Questions, and Polls. To ask a question of our guest speaker, please post it to the Questions tab, and to chat with other attendees, please use the Chat tab. It is also best to use Chrome, Firefox, or Safari browsers to view the webinar, as you may experience some slowness on other browsers. We will also attempt to answer every question during the course of the webinar, but in the event we cannot, answers will be shared on our blog afterwards. Now for the main event. We are glad to have Chad join us for his 3rd webinar with us. Tonight will be a little different from our previous events. Rather than a prepared lecture, we will be solely answering questions that you guys have about CBD tonight. So please don't be shy. I am thrilled to introduce our guest educator, Chad. Chad is the co-founder and CEO of Pure Ratio CBD. He has over 18 years of experience developing and overseeing successful integrative medicine centers in both the United States and abroad. As a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and massage therapist with a Master of Science in Oriental Medicine, Chad has provided Chinese medical services to the University of San Diego Medical School Free Clinic and San Diego Hospice, while also running a successful private practice for 18 years. He's also served as an assistant professor at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. Chad and Pure Ratios take an herbalist approach to be able to empower balance in the body through a combination of 5,000 years of medicine and the latest scientific research and design. Join me in welcoming Chad.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So for the audience tonight, so you guys might not be used to this, we did not prepare a lecture for you. So what we'd like you to do is take all of the questions that you have on CBD and just ask Chad. Chad is, he's a licensed acupuncturist, he's a cannabis expert, an herbalist, and he manufactures these products. So he knows as much as anybody does in this topic. So utilize this to get these questions answered. I think to start, we should probably talk about the types of products that you offer and the types of conditions that you use them for.
Sure, with pleasure. So yeah, when we looked at our company, we opened it about 4 years ago. We looked at developing a family of products that as a practitioner, you have everything in your arsenal to create balance in a patient. So we looked at ways you can have administer cannabinoids. So here we're talking about CBD. So we wanted to find ways to create products that use a Chinese medicine and herbalist perspective to cannabis, but at the same time, look at all the scientific research, because really today we're able to have certificates of analysis or lab tests on the cannabis products, on the strains using, to be really the reverse engineer as an herbalist, which our grandfathers didn't really have access to, right? They couldn't have same genetics over and over. So there was hit and miss over years when you study kind of the history of cannabis and Chinese medicine, for example. So we came up with our first product we came up with was a patch. This idea there is to get cannabis directly into your bloodstream through the skin. It's easier to accurately dose. It's a long-lasting product. Then we came up with other products like, topical products. We found that cannabinoids work really well for inflammatory skin conditions or pain in the body, inflammatory wise. So we synergize our topicals with Chinese herbs, Western herbs, to really create balance and have a more powerful product. We also have things like vaporizers. I like this application, particularly because it's such quick onset. I call this the titration tool, where a vaporizer can get cannabinoids systemically in about 15 to 30 seconds. So anybody that needs a quick onset, quick uptake of dosage, a vaporizer works extremely well. For me, mode of delivery of cannabinoids is extremely important. We did a lecture or a webinar already with LASA. We talked about this subject, but it's something very passionate about, and we really use that in our company. We also have a capsule line where we're mixing Chinese herbs, medicinal mushrooms, and cannabinoids. Those ones we're energizing the therapeutic direction of cannabis. or really working with the endocannabinoid system to heighten what it needs to do or what it can do, which its main thing is great balance. So that's really the back end of our company and how we look at it. And we're unique that way because, believe it or not, there's very few herbalists actually creating products. It's just something that hasn't happened. It's been mostly doctors, MDs, biochemists, and then entrepreneurs, right? Trying to ride this wave of CBD.
Well, we have questions pouring in right now, which is
great.
Really
exciting.
Susanna wants to ask you if your CBD products are third-party tested, which I know the answer to.
Yeah, well, today the issue with, great question, because there's really not a solid regulatory framework for CBD hemp products. So you're not forced to lab test. What we do at our company is we produce everything under GMP standards. And this is really important. And a lot of companies do not, because they don't want to, have these crazy SOPs and get certified by a GMP third party. When you do GMP manufacturing, you have to have C of A's. You have to lab test not just your CBD, but every ingredient within your product. And so you can really look, if you have a problem, you can reverse engineer it to find out what supplier, brought you a contaminated raw material or substance in your product. Us as Pure Ratios, we follow all GMP standards. All of our products are GMP certified.
All right. Next question is, Bella would like to know, can you speak to the difference between the complete spectrum hemp oils and just a CBD isolate extract, and then their respective therapeutic advantages and maybe some disadvantages?
Sure. So, I would like to add a third component to that, water-soluble cannabinoids. I really look at three different raw materials, CBD driven. So it's not called complete, it's called full spectrum, kind of is the term the industry uses. There's also isolates, and then there's water-soluble CBD. So these three different things have different applications. You see today, and as herbalists, full spectrum tends to be the one people look for. The reason being, what a full spectrum oil is they have all the other therapeutic components in it. So to understand cannabis, how it works, you have four active, categories of actives within the oil that help health. The main one, cannabinoids, which we all know, which is CBD, THC, there's 120 of them, but there's also terpenes. Terpenes are very interesting. We've done a lot of research with them in our company. We continue. Also, our company has a holistic cannabis clinic as part of it, where we really test out all of our products. And that's something we just launched recently, but it's a way to really understand how these things work. Because us as herbalists and practitioners, we really don't yet. I'm going to say it how it is. There's nobody that's really an expert, because this is an ongoing inquiry. And, it's really something we have to understand more and more, because our lineage talks about it, but it really went out of print, at least the flowering part of the plant, not the seeds, but the flower, about, let's say, 800 years ago, roughly. They stopped talking about it in its therapeutics because they didn't have access to the flower that had really any cannabinoids anymore, because of the hemp strains, they really picked that because the stalks and stems, you need to make clothes and ropes, things like this. And so those hemp strains tend not to produce cannabinoids. So over time, Chinese practitioners not have real access to good raw material. So full spectrum has terpenes. It also has flavonoids for the most part. That's the third ingredient. The last one is really omega-3s and 6s, which we find a lot heavily in the seeds. Not as much in the flowers, but they are some nice fatty acids even in the flower when you extract it. So therapeutics, this is kind of a big question, right? Isolates is okay for me personally if you have a product where you're mixing essential oils, you're mixing other herbs in it, because you're getting that effect. Also, when you buy isolate, you have two different kinds. You have people that just extract everything out and leave CBD. An isolate, for people that don't understand, is usually about 99% cannabinoids. So it's usually just CBD. But what we do, some of our products, we do use an isolate because we can standardize it. And getting a full spectrum, you tend to get a different strain almost every time. So you get different therapeutics. So what we've done on not all of our products, but some, is we use an isolate, but it's what I call a full spectrum isolate because it has the minor cannabinoids in it. Minor cannabinoids are other cannabinoids that create massive effect on your body, but they're not they might be 1% in there or 2%, where the rest, the percentage is going to be CBD, for example. But adding those minor cannabinoids in your isolate, you get a much better product, in my experience. So the last one is water soluble. So water soluble is very interesting. Again, we have our capsule, for example, is water soluble CBD. The reason is, as we all know, Chinese herbs and most herbs are extracted in water. So to go back, cannabinoids are lipid molecules. They're fat soluble. They're not water soluble. So if I take a product that has water soluble herbs, oil soluble CBD, they're going to dissolve at completely different times. Actually, the bioavailability is going to arrive in my system in complete different times. So the non-water soluble CBD can take up to 30 minutes to 2 hours to come on, where a water soluble will come on like a water soluble herb. It can be a couple minutes. So it depends. If you're having a product like that, and with all those other herbs, the water soluble is really the way to go. Kind of what people say from the research I've seen is anywhere from 2 to 4 times the bioavailability on a water soluble product, depending on how they're doing it. What that means is if it's a 10 milligram limpid, like a tincture with it's just oils, a water soluble one would be equal to 20 to 40 milligrams. And the onset's really quick, and you don't have, the whole problem with absorption in the digestion that a fat molecule does. That was a long answer, sorry, but I can't do better.
Oh, it was a pretty layered question, so rightfully so. Yeah. Thank you. Then Lisa would like to know, I know you're focusing on CBD, but I do have a question about THC. She lives in Colorado, where this is available. And she wanted to know if there are reports or research about adverse effects of long-term use of low-dose THC isolates for sleep.
Not in my experience. That's one of the great things about the cannabis plant is there is not much long-term issues. There could be very, very small percentage of people that can have a genetic modification or alteration in their receptors, their endocannabinoid receptors. This one could be a little tricky, but this is such a small amount. My experience, and for me, I'm very passionate about THC. I think it's a very important substance. I'm in California, so I have access to it. Our company makes THC products. I really love it. But again, what she just said for me is really important. It's really about microdosing. And microdosing in THC is around, on average, of 2.5 milligrams, depending on your sensitivity. I've seen people have psychoactivity on 2.5 milligrams, but it's super small amount. When it gets to sleep, usually a little bit higher dosage works better. Like I look at about a 10 milligram with THC. At the same time, CBD by itself is a really good sleep aid. So if you don't have access to THC, use CBD. Just to give you a little dosage, the research I've done, both clinically and with my colleagues, is you need 80 to 100 milligrams of CBD before sleep to really get a good sleep aid. And most people are not taking enough, in my experience. They say it doesn't work. Well, you have to take more. The dosage of cannabinoids is all over the place, and that's a whole discussion. We've done a webinar on that also. But it's a big question. Hopefully that answers.
I think that was very good. And then Burton also is asking about sleep, but CBD and sleep. Kind of wants to know, are they best used in formulas? If you use CBD in a TCM formula for sleep or constitution?
So that changes everything. This whole 80 to 100 milligrams, that's just CBD by itself. This is a tincture, or let's say you take a brown, whatever you're taking your CBD. When it gets to added into a formula, as we know as herbalists, it really heightens the effect. And for example, for me, we have a sleep formula, which is herbs. This one we use 15 milligrams of CBD, but it's water soluble. So it's around 40 to 45 if you had an oil-based product. So, but herbs heighten it, right? We're adding all this synergy, this whole idea, and the people that have studied cannabis medicine, there's this theory of entourage effect, and it's kind of coined in cannabis medicine. And really, as herbalists, that's what we've always done. We entourage everything. Entourage means you have several things working together to create synergy and strengthening your product, right? So yes, it's heightened it. But again, this is where the ongoing living exploration of cannabis comes in, or CBD. We need to prove it out. But we're really built for that because we know how to titrate, we know how to add more to find that sweet spot. And dosage in cannabinoids is about finding your sweet spot. And the sweet spot is all over the place. There's 100-fold dosage range, and I can't stress that enough. What that means is one person can need 1 milligram of CBD for balance, another person 100. So the dosage range is just crazy big. Again, the bioavailability of your product, if it's water soluble, it changes that. But again, it's really a big question.
Without a doubt. Miriam would like to know, could you please speak about how to choose a product for a patient? There are so many products and brands out there, and it's hard to know who to trust.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
Like key steps to find it.
Yeah, key steps. What the first question came, which is around certificate of analysis. Every company should have that online for you. Check it. Make sure what's in there. Our company, for example, does 9 different lab tests on the product. Luckily, we're in California, where actually that's what the labs do, because the THC regulation, you have to do 9 tests. We just do the same test for hemp, which most people don't. So we test for heavy metals, residual, solvents, mycotoxins, pesticides, cannabinoid content, terpene profiles, all these things. And it's important to have that. So that's number one, make sure there's a C of A, because people are claiming something's in there that's not. Again, if you have a company that's GMP, that company is going to be superior. There's a lot of companies that have done products not under GMP standards. GMP means good manufacturing practices. It's really what you do to have the FDA standards, both on nutraceutical dietary supplement side, but also on the pharmaceutical. So that would be, for me, 2 things you want to look at to really, again, the way, the type of products you need is all over the place. For me, I like products that add other herbs in it, because I'm an herbalist. So that's one thing that obviously we do, but that's my suggestion.
For the capsules that you mentioned earlier, are those going to have additional herbs as well?
They all do, yeah. They all have both. They're adaptogenic formulas. The reason we did them this way, and I'm very passionate about these capsules, is because we're selling them over the counter. We also formulated them for a practitioner, an herbalist, to use them within their normal herbal regime formula, because they're very balancing. They're all adaptogenic, meaning they're all really herbs in there. They're creating balance, not giving us a very strong therapeutic direction, because if we do that, we need to see a practitioner, right? For me, I want to have a product that I can sell over the masses, and we're also doing a lot of training modules and training kind of documents for practitioners to understand how to get into, for example, a Xiao Yao San, a liver, a liver formula. How do I do that? So it's a big question, but that's really how we're looking at it. So yeah.
Perfect. And then looks like Bill would like to know if you can maybe elaborate a little bit on using CBD to treat people with depression.
It's great. So again, CBD is great for anxiety. Depression, yes. But it depends on where the depression's coming from, right? If it's a depression that has an anxiety built into it, which often it does, it tends to work better. Somebody that's more, for me, I define depression as being angry at ourselves. It's a quality of anger usually, right? It's not usually a quality of fear, which anxiety is. So it's really depending on what you're doing. But for me, CBD could work for depression, but I'm thinking more on the anti-anxiety side, which, differentiation is a little bit subtle. But again, yeah, so again, dosage is important. If you try it with your patient, it doesn't work, add more cannabinoids. That's really the way. You have to find the sweet spot. So I don't know if that's answering this question. Maybe if not, ask another one, but it's a beginning.
All right, Bill, if you didn't get the answer, please ask a follow-up to that one. And then Stephanie would like to know, is CBD applicable to inflammation in regards to autoimmune disorders?
Yes. So again, we need to personalize everything, but cannabinoids in general have a huge effect on the immune system. So we're talking about either the autoimmune, we're talking about an internal thing, or an external. It's an incredible immune regulator. The concentration of our endocannabinoid receptors, CB2, and this is heavily in every sort of immune cell. So it absolutely works on it. It's this whole thing around cancer, it's the word we don't say, right? But there's so much research showing how cannabinoids really help with many types of cancer, which is the epitome of an autoimmune. Crohn's disease, another autoimmune, an inflammatory one. Cannabinoids work incredible. Particularly find a product that opens in the intestines. There's different ways you encapsulate your product where it actually opens in the intestines instead of the stomach. So find one of those for things like Crohn's, but it's incredible for autoimmune. Yes, it's a good one to use.
And you would suggest an ingestible for that?
Depends. So that's a whole thing around dosage. Ingestibles are great. The issue with them is there's liver metabolism on cannabinoids. And if you're taking an oil product, the absorption in your intestines is all over the place. There's been research showing that cannabinoids on the same patient in the morning, I say this all the time, they could be like 20% in the morning absorption and 60% in the evening, or vice versa, in the same patient in the same day. So dosage is a big question. The bioavailability of a lipid molecule or a lipid product, a fat product, is not as good as a water soluble. So again, it really depends on how you're taking it.
All right. I'm going to keep going because a lot of questions are coming in here. Looks like somebody would like to know, how do you select your dosage? Can you please explain how much to use and dosage for maybe some various conditions?
Absolutely. So for me, I start slow and I titrate up. And the reason being, so CBD as a substance in itself, it's really, there's not a lot of side effects overall. The only really one that's been coming out recently from GW Pharmaceuticals, which is actually a company in the US that has a drug approved by the FDA. It's a CBD drug. What they found is in very high dosages, there can be some liver problems. It actually hurts your liver. So this is something that just kind of got a lot of traction recently. But GW Pharmaceuticals dosage starts at 500 milligrams each dosage. So this for me is like the most extreme I would ever give on any patient. For me, they start there. So okay, so they're trying to really give a high dose. But what I do is I start low for two reasons. The main reason, how damn expensive these products are. I pass this on to patients. As a raw material, it's very expensive as a producer. Good thing is, just to let you guys know, over the last months, my raw material has cut almost in half. So now I can lower my prices for the first time because now I'm getting raw material for half of what I used to. It was such an expensive product because there was so little. Now there's massive cultivation. So this is a long-ended question, sorry, but I usually start at about 10 to 15 milligrams 3 times a day, and I titrate up. There's patients that 10 to 15 milligrams work. It works great. They find balance. Other people might need, like, for example, for sleep, they need 100 milligrams. Or they need 200, or for a neurological condition, it goes up. So, but again, I'm starting with my patient. I'm educating them. Okay, we're going to start slow. I want you to really see what's happening. Give it, for example, 3 days. After 3 days, if you notice nothing, add more, right? So maybe you go to 15 to 30. Okay, try 30 3 times a day. Or if they only do 2, just, find what that means. But so that's how I do it. And then I go up. I go from like 15 to 30. You can then go to 60. Then you can go up to in the hundreds if you want. And sometimes you have to get the 500 milligrams. And that's where you find their balance for people that have an extreme endocannabinoid deficiency, right? That's how it works.
So I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit more, or actually try to get more info out of this question because it's a great one. Like if you had somebody first coming in for sleep, what would be your suggestion?
I would start with 80 milligrams.
Just before bed, or would they space that out?
Before bed. I would do it before bed. So what CBD does, it's not a knock you out substance. THC, it knocks you out. CBD is more subtle, right? There's not a euphoric. It's going to help your quality of sleep, right? It's going to relax you and it's going to help your sleep. And there's been a lot of study. You actually put the monitors on your REM sleep and your deep sleep, and people taking CBD, they have a better sleep. And it's just shown in the statistics. You see it again and again. So we know it's working, but usually sweet spot is 80 to 100. So start at 80 or 100, but that would be a sleep. Something else like pain, it could be less, right? So it depends on what you're treating.
So then some with the sleep would take about 80. It wouldn't be right before bed. You're thinking a couple hours?
Yeah, I would tell my patient, take it about half an hour before sleep. Or if they don't have a problem falling asleep, take it right before sleep. So it depends on what, right? If I have a problem falling asleep and I'm taking an oil-based product that I know can take an hour and a half to 2 to come on effect, I might take it before, right? Most people, it's 30 to 60 minutes for onset of CBD. So I would say an hour before bed, safe. If it's a water soluble product, it can be 5 to 15 minutes before.
Perfect. All right, one last question from me. So if you were going to treat somebody that came in with an acute injury with CBD, what would your suggestion be?
So acute injuries is a great question. So acute injuries, in my experience, it's a little bit hit and miss. It doesn't work for everyone as a pain reliever. Chronic, another story. Chronic, I get way, way better results. But somebody coming with acute pain or any pain, my treatment protocols with CBD tend to be twofold. I do a multifold administration, meaning I'm going to use a topical product and systemic. I like to do that because topical products work extremely well for localized pain. But when I give a systemic, I get better relief, particularly somebody that's an acute problem, right? They just have a flare up of pain. So I would start with a higher dose. Maybe I would start with about 50 milligrams on the safe side as an internal systemic for acute pain, because these people have debilitating pain often. They can't function, right? So I'm going to add more as a starting point. So I'm not, wasting days and time trading up, to try to find that sweet spot. Somebody with chronic, I would start lower, but acute, maybe 50 to 75 milligrams, depending on their pocketbook, how much they can afford. I'm not worried really to overdose them. This is not THC, that's psychoactive, so I'm safe. And then I would do an external application with a product that has some other herbs in it. What we've done, for example, on our roll-on, which is an oil-based product, we put arnica in there. Arnica, as you know, is more for acute pain and bruising. So we've done that to have a better pain spectrum, right? I can get that cannabinoid effect with chronic pain, and then the arnica with acute, so really to help with a better. So that's another way to look at it, but I'll always do two, personally.
All right, thank you so much. Looks like Linnea would like to know, I understand that cannabis shares some genes with Homo sapiens. Can you tell me more about this and where for more information online?
Yeah, so that's really looking at, if I understood the question, it's looking at the endocannabinoid system. So all vertebrate animals have an endocannabinoid system. So we share that system with pretty much every living creature, not plants, obviously, but anything that's a vertebrate creature, any mammals, there's insects with it, also birds, all these, they have it. It developed about 300 million years ago. The endocannabinoid system genetically, so it's receptors. Another very fascinating thing, I'm actually going to give a lecture on this at the Pacific Symposium in November, is genomics, DNA testing, and Chinese medicine and how they work together to create a personalized approach. And so genomics and genetics have found a lot of SNPs and markers to really see how this all happens. Genetically, it's really built into our DNA, right? So I don't know if I answered the question. I kind of got in a tangent, but it's I love the question, maybe.
Well, I think that the way to get more information on this is to come to Pacific Symposium and visit your lecture.
Correct. Well, there'll be a lot of information there, that's for sure.
All right, perfect. And then looks like somebody else would like to know, better to find one that's specific for cannabinoids or more full spectrum, isolates, etc. Do we need to consider different ones for different types of conditions?
Yeah, so if you're taking a tincture product that just has CBD in it, get a full spectrum. It's a better product. If they're just put isolate in a coconut oil, I don't find it a good product. So if you're using an oil-based product, err towards full spectrum. It's just a better product. You have terpenes in there. You have flavonoids, as I mentioned before. So in general, that's a better product. So again, if you put herbs in there, if you're using a soluble because you have herbs in there, it changes it, right? But if you're just getting a CBD product and 95% of the products on the market are just CBD, so get a full spectrum if that's what you're using. It's just a better product. So yeah, even on the topical sense, it's better because you're going to get the terpenes. Terpenes do help with inflammation and different problems with the skin and pain. So just find a full spectrum product. And you're going to know it's full spectrum pretty easily. Look at their lab tests, see if it has terpenes, and see if it has minor cannabinoids. That's how you're going to know.
Are there any times where you would suggest an isolate?
Yeah, I would suggest it. You know, we do use it in my product line, and I would suggest it if you're adding other herbs in it, or if you're adding essential oils. So essential oils are terpenes. They're 80% terpenes. That's how essential oils work. They're working with terpenes. Terpenes are pharmacologically active. They're small molecules, and they have a massive effect on the body. Cannabis as a medicine has opened up the terpene research like no other. It's everywhere now. It's fascinating. We're looking at terpenes as a company almost like you construct a Chinese herbal formula. We're adding them in like as, you know, chief herbs, envoy herbs, taking them different places, and we're finding incredible really results. There's a whole science going to develop around personalizing your terpene profile for conditions. And so we're experimenting all the time with that. And I think as a community, we can really look at that. What it's done for me as a practitioner studying cannabis, it has opened me to molecules and actives. Our plants are working biochemistry, right? Wise, functional medicine wise, naturopathy study this, and it's really incredible what you can do with these molecules, right? So anyway, I got a little tangent again.
It's very easy to do on this topic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Looks like Robin would like to know, is CBD good for skin conditions?
Excellent. It's one of its main therapeutic directions. So the science behind it is in your dermis of your skin, in every layer, you have both CB1 and CB2 receptors, which are the main receptors are the endocannabinoids work on and the phytocannabinoids, right? Things like CBD. So they're massive in the skin. And so because of that, you can affect on your endocannabinoid system topically, which is unusual, right? The skin's such a barrier of the body that it's difficult to get, you know, any sort of stimulation on receptors in skin. Endocannabinoids have massive amount in there. Because of that, topicals work for all kinds of inflammatory skin conditions. So we should put a little asterisk on that. So things like psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, certain autoimmune skin conditions, also any inflammatory one, really use cannabis or cannabis sativa, hemp, whatever as your chief herb and formulate around it. That's what we're doing, and we're just getting just massive testimonials on things we would have never believed our products would work on, and we're learning every day what it does actually through our clients and our patients. So absolutely use it. Our salve, for example, and that, you know, regard, we added skin conditioning herbs. So things like calendula and elder and meadowsweet, right? Things that are going to already help skin problems with CBD or THC or a ratioed product. That's how you're going to get a great one. So absolutely.
Would you only suggest topical, or is there also a systemic application?
No, I would do both. I would do definitely both. When you're dealing with these chronic type skin problems, you know, I would do a systemic approach. I would do both. Again, you don't have to. Again, it depends on your client, depends on how much money they have, because these products are expensive. They'll say it how it is, sadly. But that's just, yeah. So I would do both. It'd be safer.
We have another question about dosing. We answered most of what this person's asking, but then she asked if there's a chart out there. Do you know of anything like that?
Like chart, probably meaning conditions,
like maybe
and what doses to start with?
Like a condition, and then say, here's a suggestion on how much to take.
I've never seen one. I would imagine companies are trying. I kind of call a little bit, you know, I call people on that because my experience is this plant has personalized. And it's just true. And for me, it's like, I'd like to take the microphone and say this because most people are thinking it's like over the counter, I take CBD and it's forever. It needs to be personalized, guys. But that's really the base of what we do as herbalists and as acupuncturists and as any sort of natural healthcare practitioner. And that's why we should be driving this industry. And it's like my pet peeve. I get upset that we're not. And so I'm trying to like get people to. So, but yeah. So I think I answered the question.
Without a doubt. There can't be a chart, right? Because it's just
No.
too personalized in your.
Yeah. But things like sleep, this is kind of one of those ones I say, hey, start at 80, because in the testing, scientifically, we find less than that doesn't really affect the body. So there's certain things like sleep, yes, but the most of the conditions you need to personalize it. Start slow, titrate up.
All right. Kathy would like to know, is there a place to find CBD studies for certain conditions, specifically for use with Parkinson's?
There is. Just if you Google, and yeah, great. So there's so much research on cannabis. Really just go to PubMed. When you in cannabis or CBD or THC, you're gonna have like 18,000 or 24,000 articles come out. Just look on any scientific journal. The problem is on this research is because of the blockage of Schedule 1. The research tends to be pilot studies. A real full-blown study on conditions is rare to find, but you get a lot of studies on mice models, for example, in vitro models, where you're seeing it's working. So you're saying, oh my God, this is worth doing more, but then the grant stopped, or they couldn't get access to the plant, or forever it's been the University of Mississippi, the only place you can buy it legally. And what I've heard, it's the worst quality cannabis on the planet. So, the way they're getting for testing even on, NIH research is pretty bad. So, but there's good markers, there's good things to read to understand, yeah, this is looking like it's working. And then us as practice have to prove it out.
All right. Well, I just put my email address in the chat field, so feel free to shoot me an email, and I can send you these links. So they're just interesting studies, and then PubMed, where you can find all of the articles on cannabinoids and CBD. And then next question from Robin: at what point during the course of treatment do you recommend incorporating CBD? Pre, during, or post, or all of the above?
For me, I have a holistic cannabis clinic, so people come for that. So we really recommend it from the get-go, and people are coming to try to understand this whole thing, right? Not go to a bud tender, but they come to us. But yeah, I'd see all of the above. I don't really differentiate that treatment plan personally. Maybe you can give me a little bit more specific on the question, where it's coming from. I can answer it better if she wants.
I think what she's going for is that, for the practitioners that are listening today, like if they were going to start using CBD products, kind of a good starting place for them, would it be that they walk in and they're suggesting it right away? Are they introducing it during the treatment? Are they at the end of the treatment saying, hey, do you want to take this stuff home? It's going to help you with X, Y, Z. I think that's where she's going with that.
Yeah, and she might be talking about when you're applying it on the body of a patient. So, yeah. Okay. We'll see what she says.
All right. We'll see if we can get some clarification there. Moving on. Lisa would like to know, is there a tolerance effect where people need higher doses over time?
Yes. Extreme tolerance effect. So like a lot of these type of molecules, we build a tolerance. The endocannabinoid system with high dosages gets down-regulated, is the term, right? So we down-regulate our endocannabinoid system if we take a lot. We see this with people, particularly with THC. There's users that will take an edible of 300 milligrams, and that's what their sweet spot. But they're avid users that take it every day for 20 years. They've so saturated their system that their actual endocannabinoid receptors shrink. And so they need a lot more to get any effect. The good news is on all the research, if you get off of it for, let's say, 21 days on average is a good amount, your endocannabinoid system comes back to new. There's no damage, there's no long-term damage. And they've done a lot of research on it. So that's been proven. And what I tell patients, particularly if it's a price point issue, is to get off it every once in a while. Take a 3-week break, come back to it, you'll be back to your original dose. But you have to work with this. It's the same with things like, these these powerful molecules, a lot of them have this. The good side is there's not a lot of addiction on even for things like THC. The reason is cannabinoids are stored in fat cells. So you slowly detox over time. It's not a water soluble products. So it's not like nicotine that's water soluble that you instantly have a withdrawal, or heroin or opioids, right? Cannabinoids are fat molecules, so they're stored in the fat cells and slowly detox over time. So you're not getting people with withdrawals like a normal substance that's addictive. And so it really helps this addictive problem for patients. It's not very addictive at all. Tangent.
So that being so that being said, would you suggest somebody using CBD to help withdraw from opioids?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of research on that, both on opioids, cigarettes, nicotine. It's going to mellow your system down. It's like a NADA protocol for people that know that. When you do ear acupuncture, it's going to help your withdrawals, right? It's going to make it so I can feel a withdrawal, but I can bear it. I can get through it without reaching for that substance. CBD or cannabinoids, the same. There's been a lot of research on THC also for, heroin addicts. It really helps them to get off it. And then it's easier to get off of THC later because it's fat molecules thing.
All right. And then we have a question about CBD during pregnancy. I
personally don't have a problem. Certain people get risks of their license on things. They have THC. It's a no. We'll say it how it is. No CBD. So no THC. CBD, I have no problem with. But again, I'm going to give low dosage. I'm going to really play it safe. And that's me personally. It's really a personal thing around this. But I don't have a problem with it. Even, women breastfeeding, the cannabinoids will go in the breast milk into the baby. So if I'm using it very low, and I'm really monitoring dosage tremendously. I'm not going to start with a high dosage just for safety case. But there's a lot of people that do shy away from it. So that's a personal.
All right, next question. If I'm treating somebody who is drug tested because of his or her job, i.e. military, and they test positive for THC, will the doctor who prescribed THC containing CBD be held liable for the positive test and possibly lose their job and license?
That's a great question. And I think it depends on many situations. What I do is if somebody's, even with a CBD only product, if they're getting drug tested, I will not recommend it. I play on the safe one because, losing somebody's job, your liability is not worth it. When they do a drug test, they do not test for CBD. The problem is there's been some research showing that, for example, CBD can turn into THC in your stomach with stomach acids. So there's been some research there. There's not enough information. So I tend just to tell people stay away. On the other end, a topical product has no problem. Like I'll give a high CBD or even a THC topical on a patient because it's oil-based, right? It's not going to get into your bloodstream and it's not going to come up on the drug test. On the topical side, yes. If you're giving a topical that has a lot of what I call skin penetration enhancers, it's a transdermal one, stay away from it. But any sort of like beeswax, for example, or kind of coconut oiled product, you don't have to worry about it.
Perfect. That answered the question wonderfully. And then looks like Powell would like to know, is CBD useful in some capacity for strokes after the stroke and during the healing process?
Yes. So the thing about cannabinoids is they're working on CB1 receptors. They're super concentrated in our central nervous system and in our brain. So there's been a lot of research for things like Alzheimer's with the plaque buildup that cannabinoids actually reverse that. Any neurological problem, cannabinoids is a go-to because we have all the receptors in our body. So they work in the septic clefts on the receptors. They do retrograde. They go the opposite way. So they really can turn up and turn down firing. So for me, a stroke patient, I would use this in a regime because I know I'm going to be stimulating these receptors in the brain through, CB1 receptors, which are concentrated in the central nervous system. So absolutely, I would use, as a part of my treatment plan.
And in that situation, would you use your normal dosing pattern, like the 10 milligrams 3 times a day?
Yes, I would. Again, if you want to err on the safe side, start higher. It might have been too much for the patient, like at 50, so they're going to spend more. So it's a lot of question around the price of the product. Sadly, right? If it was $1 for 50 milligrams, I might start everybody on 50 just to not have to waste time. Because I know that's going to be safer to get the right dosage, and I know there's so little side effects, right? So again, it's around that for me.
That makes a lot
for
of sense.
CBD. THC is another discussion.
All right, next question. Do we know what hemp and or marijuana's temperature is? Is it a warm herb? Does the temperature affect you if you were to choose to take a tincture versus smoking?
So again, it depends. It depends because the herb itself, if you're giving somebody a flower, it's different than giving a CBD product. CBD as a molecule, as a product, as a substance, as an herbal substance is neutral to cooling. THC is more warming. Think CBD yin, THC yang. Very simple. And they're very opposite way, meaning they do work that way. It's like when you're creating balance with a ratioed product of CBD to THC, that's what you're playing with, yin and yang. And again, on top of it, working with our endocannabinoid system, which they've found is the major homeostasis system in the body. It's the major adaptogenic system in the body. We're working on what we're talking about in the base of Chinese medicine. So I look at it that way. So it's neutral to cooling on the CBD side to neutral to warming on the THC side, more towards the warming. Shen Nong wrote about cannabis, the original one. I would just look at his monograph on it, and he talks about as a kind of a cooling herb.
Interesting. And then Bella wants to know, is there data as to safety of CBD in pediatric use for sleeping and night terrors?
Ooh, that's a great question. I never searched it. It's not one of my specialties, treating children, so I haven't, but I would probably bet 90% that there is quite a bit. So just Google that one. There's so information now with the internet that I would start there, but I don't have any experience, so sorry. But I know if you just put it in the internet, you should find out right away.
And then do you know, like, are there, now that the legality is clearing up, are there a lot more studies out there being done right now as we speak?
Yes. It's more than just a legality. It's just all the money poured in this industry. You cannot believe how much money has came in through the capital markets and through many different ways. So it's absolutely there. You have a lot more companies coming out doing the clinical data. Like our company in our clinics, we have a whole research division. We research the product actually with clinical data. So it's happening more and more and more and more. So yeah.
All right. So I guess stay tuned.
Yeah.
And then Robin would like to know, would you recommend patients use both ingestible and topicals to get ingestibles and topicals together?
All the time. It's my go-to. It's a little bit more shotgun approach, but I like the multi mode of administration. I call it mode of delivery. I like using two. I like the topical and the internal, particularly for any inflammatory condition, from pain to skin conditions, right? Like I'm not going to do a topical if I'm treating wounds, right? I'm going to only do a systemic. But if I'm treating any sort of pain or skin problem, I'll do both on every patient.
What about something like Bell's palsy?
I would do both.
Interesting. All right. Let's see. Next question. We are not.
But for Bell's palsy, I might use a product that has some skin penetration enhancers. That's going to get your CBD a little bit deeper, localized. Like, for example, our patch that we use, it goes right into the bloodstream, but it goes really concentrated locally, right? So you could put like a topical or a patch on the Bell's palsy area. You're going to concentrate that area over hours and days.
All right. Well, the next question is that we get fairly regularly. Why don't you, meaning Pure Ratios, offer tinctures?
Oof. Great question. We actually are going to. The reason I didn't is, our philosophy of our company is to do something that's unique. It's different than everybody else. And what I really saw was everybody and their mama had tinctures. So it was kind of like a philosophy. But what's happened to us is we bumped up against a wall, meaning that when you're titrating internally without a tincture, you're missing the game. Because in my capsules, for example, it's 15 milligrams. right? So you can add another capsule to get another 5 milligrams, but it's expensive too. So tinctures end up being helping with the sweet spot. So we are coming out with a tincture, and we're working with the carrier oils to really come up with a unique product, and that should come out in the next, let's say, 60 to 90 days. But it's important because that's where dosage systemically is easy to titrate. So I agree. We need one.
All right. So it's coming?
It's coming.
All right. And let's see. So somebody already asked about pregnancy, but then this person elaborated, looks like in the low dose THC under 0.3%, CBD oil can be used with drugs cleared in the liver, or will it be a negative effect increasing or decreasing medication?
0.3 THC is the question?
Let me try to see if I can understand this. So it was two questions. So one was, is CBD oil okay in pregnancy? You answered that before.
Sure.
Next question, in the low dose THC of 0.3% in a CBD oil, can it be used with drugs cleared in the liver, or will there be a negative effect increasing or decreasing the medication effect?
That's a pretty complicated question, but overall what I can say is cannabinoids can affect medication. And so that's very important as a practitioner to look into. I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's something when I ask for an intake form, I look at what medication and I compare it to that. And that's really easy to find online. So just Google it, but it does affect certain medications. So if people are on them, make sure you're looking at the drug interactions, because it is a powerful molecule, right? So it does happen. So that would kind of be my answer to that question, what I understood.
Okay. And actually, going back to the why don't you offer tinctures question, I know recently you guys discontinued the lozenges. Can you explain just a little bit why?
That was really, that was a business decision, because we licensed that patent, and the company that owned the patent for many different reasons took it back, and it was really around money. So I just did it for that reason. It didn't make sense as a business. But what we did is we replaced it with the capsule, which I believe is a comparable product. I don't want to say better or worse, but it is comparable product. So that's what we did to really have that family of products live.
All right, I just wanted to ask that because I know our customer service team has been getting some.
Yeah, I'm bummed about it too. We will come up with a sublingual. It's in our product pipeline. So it is something that we will do a little bit different than what we had, but I think a sublingual application is extremely important also.
Perfect. All right. Okay. Great question from Susanna here. What's the difference between cannabis sativa and hemp vis-a-vis CBD?
Same thing. Cannabis sativa is cannabis sativa. Hemp is cannabis sativa. It's the same. There is some differentiation where they'll have cannabis sativa genus indica, and there's one rudimentus. So there's some botanical differentiations happening a little bit, but it's all the same plant. Hemp and cannabis is cannabis sativa.
All right. Let's see. Oh, next question. Another good one. Are you doing any research and follow-up studies on long-term effects of patients that are taking CBD?
There is research on that. Us as a company, I'm not doing that research. We're really researching more, things like pain and, like Crohn's, things like this, different conditions. So we're not looking. I just have found and using this herb for such a long time, I don't see that problem. So I'm not looking into that strictly. It's safe for me, very safe.
All right. Amanda wants to know another question about what is the safety on CBD during pregnancy, oils versus topical. She said she's due in 2 months and really misses using CBD and wishes she could have it during her first trimester with nausea. Or wish she could have had it during her first trimester.
Yeah. I would use it, but like I said before, pregnancy is one of those things I would do it very lightly. We would be microdosing CBD. Micro CBD for me is, let's say, 5 to 10 milligrams. I would go there for a pregnant woman and see. Topically, I would have no problem. I would give it to them all day long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa says she has read some claims about nano CBD. Is there any advantage in terms of absorption or
Yes.
clinical effect?
So nano CBD is water soluble CBD. If she was listening to the original thing when I talked about water soluble, it's the same exact thing. So we can refer to that. Nano emulsification is one of the ways you make CBD fat molecule, lipid molecule into water soluble. You actually encapsulate it in a nano emulsification process. But it's just, it became this thing, people charge double the price for this product usually, which is sad, but they do. And, but it's extremely bioavailable and people like to write patents around it and, make a lot of, yeah.
Right. Robin would like to know, do you have experience with using CBD products to treat kids? And can you talk about how you would think about starting?
Yeah, so I have some. As I mentioned before, it's not my specialty. So I do not treat a lot of kids. What I would do for dosage is I would do the body weight rule. So if a normal person, let's say for sleep, like a normal person, meaning let's say 120 pounds, needs 80 milligrams, I would, reverse engineer that for a child. So I would just do the body weight rule, vice versa if it's somebody that's, obese. That does play a factor. So that's what I would do it for a child. But I think CBD for children is amazing. You should definitely use it.
Are there other conditions that you would suggest when using it with kids, or what type of conditions would you suggest using it?
I would use all the therapeutic directions of CBD, which, I can give you guys all a list if you want. I have one. But there's about 15 of them. Overall, from the autoimmune to the inflammatory things like pain, the gamut, it's a big one, because the reason being is we're working with the endocannabinoid system, which is the major homeostatic balancing system in the body. And as we know as practitioners, once the body's in balance, healing happens. That's the base of all natural medicine. For me, if you boil it down to anything as a practitioner, we don't do anything. We help the body find balance, and it does it on its own. That's really, for me, it's a philosophy I tell all my students. I talk about it all the time. I tell my patients, that's the goal for me. And that's what I'm going towards. And I'm getting my ego out of it like I'm doing anything. So that's really how I would approach it.
All right. And then Tony wants to know, what is the highest THC content that is legal?
Legal?
Maybe in marijuana and hemp, I guess.
Oh, so the CBD doesn't really exist, the highest. You can kind of do what you want, right? But THC, it depends on your state. So that's a full regulatory question. So states, they say you can only take this much or buy this much per day. There's nobody telling, you can say over 3 days you bought 4,000 milligrams and you want to take it. Nobody's going to know. You could do it, but they limit it on actually what you can buy per day. That's what they do in THC. Each state has a different one. Some have stricter, some have, more loose, and some don't even have them. So it depends on your state. There's no law around it. What you take, it's law on what you can buy per day.
That makes sense. Stephen wants to know, which TCM organ system does CBD affect?
It's a great question. It's a big one. So again, I would like to, open this to a preface, because I really believe, again, that I'm inquiring into this, right? If you look at our grandfathers, people like Shen Nong, they're talking a lot about things around the kidney energy. We're thinking, things that are neurological. So if you look at that, we're looking at kidney energy in general. You're looking at cannabinoids. Liver can, cannabis has a bell curved dosage range. What that means on the bell curve is if on the beginning of the bell you're having an effect, when you go to the other side, you have the opposite effect. So what we found with moving the liver or working on the liver with cannabinoids is people are coming in often overdosing on THC. These patients have liver qi stagnation often with too much THC. Their liver's sluggish. So that's taking too much. On taking less, finding that sweet spot on the bell curve, you can actually support the liver the other way around. Again, if you look at spleen energy on the whole inflammatory, like diverticulitis, Crohn's disease, things like that, we're kind of in spleen energy. Also, it's going to very much affect the heart and the Shen. So those are the ones I'll be starting with.
All right. Looks like, how would you explain the sweet spot of a patient so they can tell me when they've reached it? Or what questions should I ask them to find out that they've reached it?
Great question. What we do is we have, really kind of handout for patients that they fill out to do this, but it's really the same conversation you're going to have with herbal dosage, meaning that we know as herbalists, we have what the book recommends, but sometimes we have to have them take more to find the effect. And so they titrate up. It's the same thing. So if it's, for example, pain, they start taking more until the pain stops. At that moment, that's the sweet spot. But again, when they take it over a long period of time, they're going to down-regulate their endocannabinoid system because we build a tolerance. So build in an uptake. Let's say, okay, say 30 milligrams is the sweet spot. Do that for a month. After a month, we reassess, and you might have to go to 40 or 50 or 60 milligrams on that same patient because they down-regulated. So I have that conversation. If it's starting to have less an effect, add more. Like say 10 milligrams at a time. And that's where things like a tincture could come in because we can see how much they're taking. So that's how I would do it.
So are you checking with them and checking in with them weekly or every couple weeks?
Yeah, so it depends. Usually I start weekly, a treatment, and then we check in, they come for a treatment, we talk about it, and over time we're gonna do 2 weeks and over a month, and then, probably, like 4 times a year at changes of seasons. I usually do that in general for my patients. So I do the same with CBD once they can find balance. And people learn pretty quick.
All right. And then Terry wants to know, is it legal to take CBD products on airplanes?
It's changing every day, man. That's a funny one because I just recently the TSA made, they're always changing their comment fact on marijuana products, right? Overall, what they're saying, this just came out, the announcement, and for this person, please just Google it. It's going to come up right away because the announcement, I think, came out like 2 weeks ago that they changed the policy. I just read it, but I'm kind of going memory, so I could be wrong. But you're allowed now officially, but it needs to be a hemp product, or it needs to be GW Pharmaceuticals product, which is, it's legal for you to be prescribed by your doctor. But please look, because I could be wrong a little bit. So THC is a whole nother story, but probably don't need to go into that one.
I saw the same exact article that you're referencing, and it was TSA, and they did say pretty clearly, which everyone could find, that hemp-based products are fine. And I personally fly with them every time, so I haven't had any issues, but definitely look up the article if you're concerned. Next question. Oh, this is a good one. What advice would you give to start selling CBD products, profit, etc.?
Great question. Cool thing about it is wholesale on all CBD products is always, 50% off of retail. So you make good money on CBD products, so most products are fairly expensive, anywhere from, you guys have seen, I'm sure, 20 is on the real low end up to $100 for a tincture. So you're going to get a good upside on this. And it's a 50% markup. Not all nutraceuticals are, but CBD is. So that works really well. I would want to have a family of products to be the same company, but enough of them where you can navigate and find balance with your patient. So have some systemic applications, some topical, if you want transdermal. If you want to have more accurately dosed products, find ones that go directly into your bloodstream. So you don't have to worry about liver metabolism and the malabsorption in our intestines. So that's how I would look at it, and that's how we do it. And you want to have topicals, so maybe some transdermal. Vaporizers, I like. People tend to, have some stigma around them, but it's a great titration tool. That's how I work a lot with titration with my patients, is vaporizers, because it's so quick onset. So that's how I would do it. It's a hot item. So yeah, make sure you have reputable companies that work. That would be kind of my main one.
Do you suggest signage like on the windows outside?
Yes.
Or
absolutely. It's a great seller. If you look at the research on nutraceuticals today, it's CBD is number one. Like, people are looking for this product. There's so much information now happening in news media, and it's helping so many people. And the whole opioid epidemic problem, that you absolutely, it's a easy way to sell product. Most everybody are buying CBD today. Let's say it how it is, right? That's just the reality. If you look at practitioners, and this is important for you guys, maybe would help. I've done a lot of looking at the market research, right? These research you have to buy as a company to see. So one that just came out from the Hemp Journal, a really good one. what they say is today in the industry, CBD wise, it's 8% practitioners selling it. By 2021, it's going to be over 20%. So one of the biggest channels that we're going to see CBD products moving through is through us practitioners. It's just the way it is. And as we know, we have a better way of using this product. When we say take them, people usually comply. It's just how it is. So that's a big segment growing for all of us. So I recommend selling them. If you have worry about this whole issue of having them in your practice, there's a lot of affiliate programs now where they can be drop shipped right to your patient.
All right. Great answer. Great question. Another question. Listening to this program, and thank you, I'm struck by how much education and training would be and is necessary before one uses CBD and tea with patients in the clinic. It seems a lot more complicated than one may initially think.
Absolutely.
So more of a statement than a question.
No, it's true.
Are there certification programs out there where practitioners can get certified to be a cannabis?
Yes, there is. So, so the school that I'm a professor in and that I went to is Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. You guys might know it's PCOM. So PCOM just launched the first accredited cannabis education program for practitioners. It just launched about a month ago, maybe not even that. I saw it come out again and again. It's not a long program, but it's certified. You can get, you get credit. They're an accredited college. So that's a good one, I would imagine. I haven't, taken the course, but their quality is usually pretty good. So I put a plug for them. I would do that one. It's an acupuncture school. Besides that, there's a lot of, I've done several. I think mine are decent. I've done several for PCOM. I've talked at the symposium. You can find them all online. I have about 8 hours of information. If you do that, you don't get a certificate, but you'll know what to do for the most part. And my real thing is how do you personalize it is really where my passion is and what we're proving out every day. We're developing a whole system based on Chinese medicine and genomics on personalizing cannabis. So stay tuned. We are really in that development and we're talking about it all the time. I'm talking about it at the symposium again. Also to put a plug on the symposium, I have a whole day lecture, a 7-hour lecture on how to make these products on topicals as a practitioner in your office, how to make them yourself, put your label on them as your clinic and sell them. And you can make some awesome products topically and things like that. Even things like big ones, which I like are, and you don't find this much is suppositories. How do you make those?
Very interesting. Well, guys, come to the symposium. We'll have a booth there. You can come visit us, and Chad will actually probably be hanging out with us at some points there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry. And then Miriam wants to know, can you just repeat the body weight rule that you were talking about? I believe it was in regards to children.
Yep. So a good base for dosage is somebody that's 120 pounds, 100 pounds, kind of the average weight overall. If you look at that weight, like a good example is sleep. If it's 80 milligrams for that weight, if these people are double that weight, double your dosage. If they're half that weight, bring it down by half. So the same thing you would do for any supplement, right? Like any vitamin product or herbal product. A child, you're going to give a lower dosage and you're going to compare it to body weight. So that's what I'm referring to. So it's just really around there. But again, there's a 100-fold dosage range. So maybe a kid might need, and believe it or not, GW Pharmaceutical on children start at, I think last time I looked, it's like 350, 400 milligrams. So, and this is a pharmaceutical company. They did massive data. It's a good one for us to understand. Look at all their research, and they have a lot of it. So GW Pharmaceutical is the biggest pharmaceutical cannabis company in the world. It's a UK-based company, like $100 million. I think they're $1 billion company. Anyway, they're huge, and they're just all in cannabis. So they've done a lot. But on the bad end, they've wrote a lot of patents to try to control the industry too.
All right. Looks like Robin wants to know, are there any new updates relating to legality of practitioners buying and selling CBD to patients?
So this is a kind of a big question. What I tend to say, there's a lot of research and articles out there that tell the CBD laws in each state. There's certain states that require certain things on the packaging, like a QRC code in places like Indiana. And so those are things that we're adding as manufacturers so we can sell in those markets. There's places like, North Dakota, that are a little bit more strict. I personally, there's a couple states that we tend not to ship to, but overall as a practitioner, in my experience, you're safe. Where things get a little bit tricky is if you're recommending and selling edibles. So the FDA now is regulating, because now it's unscheduled, right? It used to be the DEA that scheduled CBD that rules the whole, now that the Farm Bill passed, it became legal to grow hemp and all these. So now it's the FDA. FDA, they're, it's the government. What can we say, right? They're slow, and this is an ongoing question, right? But what they're pushing back on today, FDA, is CBD in food. So I say stay away from that. Don't sell it in food. Like, food means a cookie or putting a coffee or putting it in, things like that. If it's a tincture or capsule or sublingual, those are not considered food products. So those are, safer, but don't buy, a gummy would be considered food. Gummies are probably the third best-selling CBD product in the nation. So everybody has gummies. I don't do gummies because of this yet, just for, you don't want to mess with your license. But that would be the only thing I would say as a practitioner to stay away from. Edibles. And
there's a site I follow, which is hempsupporter.com, and that you can actually, it gives you access to contacting your, your local congressmen and women, and you can, actually plead your case and say why you think that hemp and cannabis should be available in your state. So hempsupporter.com, you can get involved and, say your piece to the people who make changes.
And what we're finding, just to continue that question, because it's a big one, we're finding now states are approving CBD. For example, California in food. For example, California now has a bill in Congress where they're approving CBD in food products. And every time it goes up, it hasn't passed, but every time it goes up to be voted on, everybody votes yes, 100%. So we know this bill is going to pass it. And that's kind of what's happened with THC too. When the government's slow, states react by, regulating themselves and saying, federal government, stay away. So that's happening even in food things like in California. We're seeing other states following. So it's happening, guys. It's just, the federal government, they're just slow, but they're trying to be active. They're asking questions. They're doing public hearings. The big thing they're pushing back on right now is this whole liver problem with GW, which I think is just stupid. It is what it is. There's so many herbs that are worse for us than CBD, that we sell all day long. If you have high dosage, they're toxic. So many. They're just, laser focusing on this one because, whatever. It is what it is.
All right. Another question. Any effect on MS?
Yes. So again, CBD, the endocannabinoid system, phytocannabinoids, endocannabinoids, they're working on turning up the volume switch and turning down of the neurostimulation, the presynaptic and postsynaptic signals. So MS is a hyperfiring. Epilepsy is a hyperfiring. So when we're talking about phytocannabinoids, CBD, it's going to help turn that down. So it's one of the best for things like MS, because MS is just that, the myelin sleep sheath. So it really does help. There's been a lot of research. I've used it on patients and found also Parkinson's, another one, works extremely well. We see the tremors slow down.
And is that just a systemic application, or would you also suggest any topicals in these situations?
More systemic. Topical is going to be more for skin problems. Right. Unless it's a transdermal lotion, which can get into the bloodstream.
All right, I'm just seeing if I missed anything in the chats. I don't think I did. Looks like that may have been our last question. Great. So, Chad, again, this is now our third webinar together. We can't thank you enough, because, I'm seeing all of the comments in here, and everyone really enjoyed this information.
Great. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I would love to speak for days on this. Well, I do.
You do. You do, and you will. Yeah. And we'll also make you do this again if you're willing.
Perfect. I'd love to.
And then I did see some comments about people about the recording. So your email in about 5 minutes after we finish, you will actually have a link to the recording right there. And then we'll also put this on our blog so it can be available to anyone who missed it today. And then we don't have any unanswered questions, which is great. We got to all of them. So really at this point, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for being so involved, asking such fantastic questions. Please join us on July 24th. So only 2 weeks away, we have our next webinar
which will be featuring John Chen from Evergreen Herbs talking about autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, and one thing, are we offering a discount on people for the listen to the webinar?
We are. So check your email. You will have a great promo code for 15% off Pure Ratios products. So check your email. You'll get that in about 5 minutes. And Chad, thank you again. Thank you to everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the questions. Awesome questions.
Really fantastic. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, bye.